Well, welcome to What's Broken. Today I'm back working on my fishing boat. So with my initial layout, this was my seat, and then I figured it wouldn't be bad trolling. I've never had a troller before. I've always had, center console steering type boats, but figured what the hell, for fishing this works good. And it does. If I'm going across the lake, I turn my chair sideways, I can look and, run the tiller. The problem is if I'm trolling for 5 or 6 hours, I've got my arm behind me, I'm trying to visit with my buddies, keep an eye on my rod, etc. And I end up with a sore neck and a sore wrist. So, that brings me to today. I was trying to record with a dead battery, so I got started without catching everything. But what I'm planning on doing is rigging up a sort of a shift or a steering bar that'll come off these two angle irons, which I'm going to bolt down to the base, the chair base. So I need to weld a strip across here and then do some bending and bring the rod up, the steering rod up here. And my idea is that if I push the rod, the boat will turn to the right, and if I pull the rod, the boat will turn to the left. So after I get sort of this part figured out, I need to figure out a linkage that's going to come back here. It may run, I may end up drilling through this, or I may end up with the linkage coming up here. Either way, it'll come up, go over, tie into a center point on the motor, and then I'll be able to just troll along with a quick connect. The idea for the quick connect is just a hydraulic coupler. I'll weld it, one to an angle iron that'll be mounted there, the other one will go to the rod that's going to go across here. So without further ado, because there's a bunch of sort of naggly little, figuring out and trying this and trying that, I'll bring you back, at regular intervals and maybe show you how I'm building what I'm building, and then how it sort of ties into the whole system. Hope that makes sense, and hope you enjoy the video. So I cut a chunk of 2 by 1/4. I'm just building this out of scrap that I have laying around. I'm just going to take this over to the bench and weld all of this into place. And then I'll punch a hole through here with a drill, and that'll be my bottom pivot point for the I don't know what you call it, steering shaft, steering rod, whatever. Okay, I got everything clamped and cleaned up and set in place, so I'm going to put a few tacks on this and then test fit it to make sure all the holes still fit and whatnot. Watch your eyes. And if I have to use an oversized drill bit and just open the holes up a little bit, that'll work too. We'll see if this fits and then I can carry on. Fingers crossed. It's close. I think I'll open, maybe run a little bigger bit through these two. Then everything should work well. Okay, I reamed a couple of them out. Yeah, that should work. And I'm just going to run nuts on top because this is sort of a contoured surface. I was going to build this all underneath, but I thought, you know, if I do want to take it off down the road, it'll be a lot easier just if I put 4 nuts on top. So now I'll punch a hole through here for whatever size of sort of pivot point I want. I think probably 1/2 inch at least. And finish welding up the corners. I'll finish putting some more metal on this just to hold everything together. Get you at a different angle.
So do I follow that?
And for the pivot on the motor, I cut up this little angle iron and drilled some holes so it mounts to the front. Then I'm going to weld this end to here, and that'll act as the pivot, and the other end of the quick connect will go to the linkage that runs across the back here and down to the motor, or sorry, down to the steering arm. Okay, now to weld the pivot to the bracket. I got it centered and marked. going to try to get a tack weld at the very back. And I'll give it a little bit at the front lip. Let that cool off, can bolt it in place and then start trying to figure out the linkage. And I cut off a bolt and spaced it with the non-threaded part enough for what's going to be the bottom of the steering handle. So I'm just setting this in place, and now I'm going to weld this stub into place. Just turn it a bit and get a bit of weld on the back side. And maybe while I'm at it, I'm going to run a quick bead over those. Getting close to start putting things in place. You'll set a couple things in place. This made a pulled a bit when I welded it. It pulled a bit when I welded this bolt in the end. Set this loosely in place. And this tab's going to be for the steering bar arm, and I found this little roller washer might have been out of a washing machine I worked on. But I thought it would come in handy to make a nice smooth steering situation. The arm will be welded. I'll probably put a bend in it so I can spin the seat 360. I'll run a couple of bolts in here. Get this roughly in the position I need it. So I got the female coupler on there. That's going to be welded to linkage that comes across over to this area. That will then swivel and be tied into that arm. I think I'll put a bend in this pipe. Sort of begin this part. Might be easier if I had heat, but I don't. Try that. So that should miss the chair. If I come over about 4 inches and then up, should be close. Don't want to tip the bench over. Ugh. Yeah. See how that lines up. Well, that should work. I think maybe I'll weld this handle to the little swivel down at the bottom. Then I can figure out the linkage. I got this clamped in place where I want it, so I'll glue some metal to it. Finish welding up the back side here, or the front side, or whichever side it is. I'll cool that off and then bolt it into place and figure out some more. Alright, slip this on. It's cooled off enough to handle. I'll probably end up cutting it down. I bought a nice little shifter knob for it. Yeah, the seat swivels nicely. And it may end up leaning forward quite a bit, just so I'll have to check out for me sitting in the seat, so it's at an easy reach for my hand. Next thing I found was a chunk of round stock and a piece of black pipe, which I think is about the right length I'll need. Found a bracket that I can screw into the 2x4 that's sort of supports the transom, and then I'll notch out so this pipe will sit, drop it down a little bit, and that'll get tack welded in, and then I'll run a support back to the back of the transom. And off of here I'll have the lever, which needs to be approximately 7 inches. In order to give me the 14-inch swing that the motor has from side to side. So I want a lever that's 7 inches long, center to center, and that should allow for swinging the motor back and forth to the left and the right. I'm going to go cut the end off of this, kind of clean up the ends a little bit, and figure out if I'm going to use this bracket or build something. Be right back. So I cut a little bit longer than what I need. I think I need about a 25-inch connecting rod. So I cut it 26 or so. I also need to drop so that the rod misses the under parts of the front of the motor. I found a bolt, a 1/2-inch bolt, sort of threads into these pipe threads. So I'll thread it in and then just weld it up. And this is going to get welded to the end of this, and then I can carry on figuring out the exact linkage where I want the pivot points to be. I just cleaned up the head so it'll weld a little better. Something about the right height to hold that other end up. Alrighty. Now I'll weld the threads onto that hydraulic fitting. Okay, let those all cool down. I think I'm melting the seals that are inside the hydraulic fitting. Good thing I don't need those. So yeah, I kind of put together or made up some chunks of flat iron that I'll need. So a long story short, I'm gonna take some time and sort of glue some of these pieces together, figure out what I need. It's going to be kind of hard to video it. I'll bring you back once I've sort of tacked together or welded up some of the components and show you where they're going to fit and hopefully how they're going to work. So I finished gobbing together some angle iron, some flat iron, an old bracket, piece of pipe, etc. And gonna put it in for the test fit. Hope it works. Just using some smaller wood screws to begin with. I'll probably use lag bolts when the time comes, similar to these, because I want something that'll take a little bit of the torque. There's not going to be a whole bunch of stress on this thing, but there will be some. Pop that in. I'll be using lock nuts, nylocks, when the time comes. But for now, I'm just using regular spin-on nuts. I'll move you to a different angle. Close the door to get rid of the sounds of summer. So just using the tiller arm to show you, that'll swivel that way, come all the way over here. And the next next step is going to be I'm going to put a 3.5 inch linkage off of the bottom here. Got to weld a bolt so I can bolt through it, and then put an eyelet on this end so it'll tie into the steering arm or steering rod. So that's the next little bit. Again, I probably won't show all that on camera. I'll show the finished product because there's a whole bunch of sort of messing around. But so far I believe it should work pretty good. Alright, I'll bring you back when I've got the bottom linkage done, and we'll see how the finished product works. So I think we're getting close. I'll just fold the tiller handle up out of the way. So we got the swivel on the front, a pivot point here, shaft going down. I decided just to go with a cotter key and brought this through with a washer, so about a 4-inch lever. And then over here I just have it vice gripped for now. I just wanted to see what kind of resistance this would have. And I do have to cut this handle down maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches, but nice and smooth. I think it should work out pretty well. Anyhow, I'll finish building a linkage for this point and then bring you back for the pre-painting final test. I kind of switched ideas last night. I was thinking about this. The rod in the boat that goes from the steering arm back, I noticed when I was moving it, it flexed a bit. So I figured, seeing as I got lots of this scrap, I don't know if it's 5/16 or whatever laying around, I'm going to glue 2 of them together just to stiffen it up a bit. And I changed a couple other ideas, which I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, I'm building this whole thing just out of odds and sods that I got laying around other than that hydraulic coupler. So it's not costing me anything yet. I'm just going to put a few tacks along here on both sides just to glue these 2 together and give it some strength. I'll flip it over and clamp it down and do the same to the other side. There, that should provide enough sort of stiffness and strength for that, because that's where the most stress will be, is on the bottom there. So I cut a little stub off a 1/2-inch bolt, drilled a hole for a pin. This will be welded, you know, to the bottom of this. There's a pivot point, and I'll be able to slip on slip it in there, put a washer and a pin. So now I'm just going to weld this up good and solid. Get one more tack on the top. No, I think I'll leave that, so I don't want it to hinder the washer or its movement against the bottom plate at all. I'm just trying to square this up as much as I can. Looks pretty close. I'll get a tack on it and then I'll check it. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to call it there. Get a good weld around the bottom. Okay, what's next? Just getting ready to weld this little pin, 1/2 inch, onto the steering rod. And then this'll get welded to the linkage at the bottom. Trying to figure out how to true it up. These right angle magnets, they really help. So that's square, that's square. That should be held in place. I think that'll work. And I changed the bottom pivot point at the back to 2 inches from that down shaft. And I'm setting this at 6 inches. So I'll have a 3-to-1 ratio, which will decrease the amount of forward and backwards I need to move this rod in order to turn the boat motor. So I'm hoping that'll be sort of perfect. I think everything's kind of squared up and trued, so I'll commence melting metal. I'll clean that up a bit, and then we can put the system together, figure out where to weld the linkage onto here, and that should be the last weld for this. And then it'll be time for paint. So I sat in the boat and just sort of set the motor at various angles and came up with, I made a little black mark here with a marker, that I want, you know, the rod to be centered on, or that mark to be centered on the little pin. So I'll cut this back probably about there and weld the rod to this plate, and that should pretty much have it. Everything's set up and measured and spaced. I'm just going to get a couple of tacks on this. Well, now I'm going to take out that base plate and just sort of go over everything with the sanding disc. I just use a 40 grit. Just one of these flapper discs on a $30 Power Fist right angle grinder deal. Yeah, I'll just buff everything up, make it look pretty, and then get out the aluminum paint. Hey, I got all the pieces hanging, or most of them hanging. Just gonna start splashing some good old trim clad gray or aluminum on them. It's a good color because it sort of goes with everything. It lasts a long time, goes on easy, and it dries quick. I think it dries quicker than a lot of the other colors that Trimclad has. And mostly because it's what I happen to have on my shelf right now. I didn't like the other colors. Yeah, I'll spend the next few minutes putting some color to these parts, and then once it dries enough, probably within an hour, I'll turn the camera back on and put these pieces into place, and we can see how they all work. I'm thinking the paint's dried enough, so I'm going to start putting this back together. Stick some lock washers on there. Pop the shifter on. First I'll put that little roller washer bearing I found in. Putting a nylock on here just so it doesn't come loose. That feels pretty good. Gotta take the tape off from the deluxe paint job I gave it. That's good. Pop the swivel linkage on. Okay, now I'm gonna stick the pivot bracket or whatever one wants to call it back in place. I'm going to drill out for and put lag bolts underneath, not wood screws. So I want something a little heavier duty. That ought to work. Should really be using my impact driver, but yeah, this will work. I'll stick a washer in between there. And I'm putting a jam nut on. Yeah, it's a little bit of play. Slide this through from the bottom. Drop a washer on and okay, I need to drill this out just a little more. I'll be right back. Okay, I opened up that cotter key hole a little bit more. Now that'll fit through. Last bit of linkage. I left the handle, I was thinking of cutting it down, but I left it extra long. It sticks up above the edge of the boat, maybe 8-10 inches. But I'm going to use a little quick pin so that when I go to put the tarp on, I can just lay it back out of the way. Pins in. Let's see how this thing works. Other than there being a little bit of flex in the handle, let me just set the tripod up. It's only 1/2-inch rod, but this setup is only for trolling. It's not for, you know, going across the lake flat out. It's just so that I can sort of chill out, relax, be able to chat with whoever's fishing with me, and not end up with a sore back or a sore neck or a sore arm from, you know, half turning around and half facing forward. So I'm going to say this thing turned out to be a success. Hopefully I'll get a little bit of footage of us out on the water, see how it works when it's under power, under load. So far, so good. so I'll pull back, and it turns forward and it goes left. So all in all, folks, I think it was a bit of a success. A whole lot more comfortable than reaching around behind me. Alright, well, hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll maybe catch you on the next one. Have a good day. Bye for now.